This tennis player had a weak, unathletic serve until we made one simple fix. It took just 15 minutes to go from this starting position to this one, and today I'm going to show you exactly how so you can upgrade your serve fast. Tennis nerds like to call this starting position in a good serve the trophy pose because, well, it mimics every cheesy tennis trophy ever. The funny thing is, whoever's designing those trophies out there is really onto something. Look at how similar this position is between Roger Federer and literally the first image that popped up for me on Google image search when I looked for tennis trophies. And what I want to draw your attention to specifically is look at the relationship between the upper body or the torso and the dominant arm. See how there's a strong linkage and almost kind of a parallel line here between the dominant arm that's holding the racket and the tilt of the shoulders and the turn of the torso. The reason why this is so important to hitting a strong, powerful serve is because we need the big, strong parts of the body to lead the service motion, and we want the arm to follow behind the body's lead. Here's what I mean by this. Here's that connection between the torso and the dominant arm, and when Roger starts the process of unwinding his energy up towards the point of contact, watch how this dominant elbow and arm comes along with the torso as he unwinds up towards contact. In other words, in his trophy pose right here, his right arm is in line with the plane of his shoulders. And then as he initiates the serve, he's not swinging the racket with his arm. His arm is being swung by his body. And then the racket, of course, is connected to his arm. So if you just follow my very childlike logic there, the racket is really being swung by the body, and the arm is just the linkage between the two. And as I go back and forth, watch how the arm just comes along with the body. And so it's the torso that's leading the arm, not the arm that's leading the body. The result is a big, long, circular path with the arm, which is holding on to the racket, which creates this big, smooth, flowing motion. When you reverse this, and if the arm starts going first, then it shortens that big, long circle. Things get very weak, very unstable, and it's very difficult to hit the ball with very much power. Now let's compare that same trophy pose to my student's position, and before you judge, a huge percentage of you out there have this exact same issue going on. I just know from my over 20 years of experience helping players get better, and I want you to watch the dominant arm of my student here, how it never gets to a position where her dominant arm is in line with her shoulders. In fact, her dominant arm is lucky if it even gets parallel to the baseline. And what that means is her arm is already 90 degrees further around than Roger's ever was, or than our golden friend here ever gets to with his dominant arm. And that means a very short runway, very short range of motion. But even more importantly than that, it means the arm is operating independent of the body, which is a critical flaw. As long as the arm gets off to the lead in this whole motion and it starts off ahead of the body, it really just ends up being the arm that does all of the work of pushing and it's accelerating the racket towards the ball. And the arm is dramatically weaker than all of these big, strong, stable muscles in the torso. So watch this in action just so you can really visualize this. Going back to her toss, watch her dominant elbow, how it never gets past even parallel to the baseline. Roger and our golden friend were going 90 degrees past this with the elbow so that the dominant arm was in line with the plane of the shoulders. And now from this position, with the arm and the elbow so far out in the lead, she's just gonna push the racket upwards with her arm leading the parade. And again, this is so much dramatically weaker. This is essentially a pushing position using the hand to push the racket forwards, as opposed to what Roger was doing is a pulling motion where his torso and his body are leading the train and his arm and his hand are following behind. It creates a much longer path, much more lag and release of the racket head for much more acceleration and racket head speed. I'm going to show you how we solve this step by step in just a second, but first, here's another quick angle so you can really visualize what's going on here and hopefully upgrade your own serve. Watch Novak on the left, how his body and his whole torso really turns and coils to set up his motion. And so by the time he gets into that trophy pose, not only can we see the whole front of his shirt and his chest, but look at this connection here between the angle of his shoulders and the alignment of his dominant arm. Meanwhile, my student on the other side, we never get to see the front of her shirt. And when she gets into her trophy pose, notice how her dominant arm again is pointed parallel out along the baseline. Honestly, I used the measurement 90 degrees further for Federer before, but the reality is because of all of this coiling and turning up the upper body, it's really significantly more than 90 degrees. And so you can see how her elbow, when she starts to go up towards contact, is already way out in the lead, which means that A, she's got much less range of motion overall. Watch how Novak, as he starts to unwind, his arm gets pulled around by his body, whereas my student's arm has already fully released, it's already out in front. And so when she goes to hit the ball, this is really just an armed motion, just pushing her hand up towards the ball to hit it, as opposed to using the whole kinetic chain to unwind and throw the whole arm and shoulder with the racket attached all the way around up towards the ball to generate way, way more acceleration and power. In just 15 minutes working together, I took my student through 5 different distinct drills, and I'll take you through all of them so that you can copy them yourself. The very first thing we did together is just start with the hands together, no ball in hand, and just simply practice going to that new trophy pose, which is completely different than what my student was used to doing before. So now you'll see her dominant arm get drawn back, and some of these you can see she's exaggerating. She's turning her whole torso significantly further back than she needs to, but I always love seeing exaggeration with students, especially the first time that they try something. And I also love seeing here, right towards the end, let me see if I can show you real quick, as she starts to practice this idea of A, getting her arm and her shoulder back to this new position, and then B, starting to unwind with her torso leading. Look at how now her dominant arm and the racket are being pulled around by the torso. It's no longer her arm starting off over here and from a very short runway, just pushing the racket up towards the ball. Now you can see her torso is leading the parade and pulling the arm and the racket around, and this is the foundation of what will be a much, much stronger upgraded serve. If you follow the step-by-step drills in this lesson, you're going to see a huge improvement to your serve power. And if you'd like to see that same transformation in your forehand, make sure to go to forehandpower.com and sign up for the free training I have there that will show you how to add 15 miles per hour to your forehand in just 15 minutes of practice. Just like this lesson with this student, I'll show you step by step how to do drill by drill and take baby steps towards your smoothest, most powerful, most athletic forehands you've ever hit in your life. It literally will only take you 15 minutes to add a huge chunk of power onto your forehand ground stroke. It's completely free. All you have to do is go to forehandpower.com. In the second drill we did together, I'm having my student, again without a ball, now start going through her full motion. So instead of just practicing going just to the trophy pose, which is critically important that you start off with, just to segment this and take little baby steps, now she's starting to go through the motion completely and fully, from trophy pose to racket drop, and then all the way up through the point of contact. And as she's doing this, I'm really encouraging her to make sure that the body is what's leading the arm and not the other way around. She's so used to her arm being so far out in the lead that even though this new way of doing things is much better, much more athletic, it's going to be incredibly foreign, which is why we're going to the trouble of doing all these repetitions without the ball. In the third drill together, I'm doing what I like to call a fake toss, meaning you'll see me off to the side here. I'm tossing the ball because I don't want my student to have to worry about coordinating or timing this new big motion together, because it's going to take a little bit more time to complete this longer circle with her dominant arm. And I don't want her to have to worry about timing that with her own tossing of the ball. So I'm taking her responsibility off the table, having to toss the ball for herself. And instead, right as she starts her hands going together, I'm off to the side doing a practice toss so that she doesn't have to worry about managing that part of the motion, and she can put all of her mental focus and energy on just doing the new trophy pose position and the new coordination with her body leading the way. This is a really critical stepping stone. And a lot of times in my experience, when I just hand people a ball and say, okay, great, here you go, practice your new serve, as soon as they put the ball up in the air and toss it themselves, they just go completely back to their old habit, and we don't make any progress. Speaking of which, let me show you a real world example. After doing a bunch of good ones with a fake toss, I said, okay, drill number 4 is now to do a shadow swing by herself, no ball, then a fake toss. Here, let me show you. Here's the shadow swing. And so track her dominant arm with me. Look at how she gets to this awesome new trophy pose where she's totally connected with her torso and her arm. And watch how her body is going to bring her arm around. This is awesome. Again, this all took place in just 15 minutes of real time together. So this is a beautiful shadow swing. She obviously gets it. She knows what to do. Now in this one off to the side, I'm going to toss. And she hits the exact same position. Beautiful. Great connection here between her torso and her dominant arm. Great job. Actually, a little bit different here. Now that the ball's up in the air, watch how her elbow is going to start jumping out ahead of the body a little bit. This isn't bad. Well, it's not good, but what I'm saying is compared to before, I'm okay with this, and I wouldn't stop everything and be like, whoa, 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 we gotta do this over again. But notice how a little bit of the old habit is starting to sneak its way in a little bit. And now after that fake toss, I said, okay, go ahead, go for it. And so now she's tossing for herself after those 2 really high quality repetitions. And this is just 5 seconds later. And watch how now when she makes her own toss, watch her dominant arm completely goes away. And she just goes right back to being parallel to the baseline again. Maybe this is like a 10% improvement over her original serve where she started. But for all intents and purposes, this is just right back to her old habit. Isn't that crazy? This is how hard it is to change old habits. And in my experience, in particular, on the serve, because all of this stuff that we're talking about with her dominant arm and her racket, it's all out of sight, out of mind. As soon as she puts this ball up into the air, the eyes are focused on the ball. The brain just goes right back into old habits. And no matter how much you get it, no matter how much you understand, you're probably to a certain degree going to go back to your old habit. This is why the shadow swings are so important. This is why the fake tosses are so important. You can do your own fake toss, by the way. You don't need somebody else to toss for you. Just toss the ball off to the side, out of the way where you're not tempted to hit it. I know those seem silly on the surface, but if you don't do them, you'll never get enough traction or repetition with the new motion or the new positions, and you'll just keep hitting the same old serve year after year after year after year. So we kept plugging away together, and eventually I took the fake toss out and I said, okay, just go, let's get some repetition. And she just alternated back and forth between shadows and actual hits, just so that we could get some quick repetition. We kind of were short on time. One of the reasons why this took place over just a span of 15 minutes, we had a bunch of other stuff to accomplish in the morning. The serve was kind of a back burner project for her. So in the last 15 minutes, we went over this training together and the analysis, and this is a real hit. This is amazing. So look at how much further back her elbow is coming now. Unfortunately, her elbow is going to sneak out ahead a little bit of her body, but she's on her way now. She's on the right track. She gets it. She can do it without the ball. And with this one, even while hitting the ball, she went back to her brand new trophy position and put her body in a much stronger athletic position. She still has this deep old habit of her arm coming out early and leading the swing, but now at least she has the foundation and she can continue to train back at home. Hopefully this is super helpful for you. And if you want to transform your forehand Just like you saw this student start to transform her serve, make sure to go to forehandpower.com and get my step-by-step drills just like these that will show you how to add 15 miles per hour to your forehand in just 15 minutes of practice, just like this student. Thanks for watching today, and I'll catch you in the next video.